Of the Georgia State Senate to order. And Senator Hodges, you number 11, is that how, if you'd lead us in the prayer?
Certainly, may we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us, Lord, especially the opportunity to live in this beautiful state. Be with us today and lead us and guide us as we make decisions about the affairs of our state. Grant us the wisdom we need to make the proper decisions. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
And before we get started, I was talking about a young lady at Georgia Tech last week, Lillian Beatty, and said she's watching online. She was actually over here watching, and I didn't realize it. She's a public policy student and has worked on a lot of legislation for the Senate and our Finance Committee. So if you would stand up and be recognized. And then Representative Jackson, if you want to come on up and present your bill again. I think we had a little confusion last time, and some of it was probably me. I was presenting another bill and was focused on that, but you can go ahead and present your bill. And I guess if I could speak ahead of time, there's really two parts of this. One is retention. It's talking about people that are already in place. And the other is, I would say, recruitment, those that you're trying to move into there. So that's the difference between the two sections. I know we've got a bunch of places that need to still update the date by year. If I was organized, maybe I would have gotten that done, but I haven't, and I don't think you have either, have you? So
no, sir.
So we'll have to deal with that. So
Sunset we were missing, didn't we?
yeah, well, I think it's in there, but let's look at that. We'll add something to be sure, because Section 3 has a overall sunset in it. But we'll refer to Ledge Council too and make sure we're covered on that. If we need to add another line, that would certainly be good.
You want to refer to lead council now? Or?
Well, I'll let them look it over as far as a sunset if you need some time while we're discussing it. Are you ready now? Okay, well, go ahead then. Yeah, come up to the table with us and hang out.
Do you want me to go ahead and discuss the date changes?
Sure, you can do that. Tell me what mic you're going to get on.
That's number 4.
All right.
Hi, I'm Christy Farhoudi with the Office of Legislative Counsel, and there are a few updates to this bill. If we want to look at the dates first, we'll be changing, or suggest that we should change, on lines 4, 2023 to 2024. The same change on line 25. And on line 39, the 2028 to 2029.
Now, if I got the right one, because I'm on 26.
Are we looking at LC 432749?
No, I had a more updated one, so maybe I better go back to that one.
What?
Okay, I've got both of them in my folder. I'll switch to yours. Yeah, 2749S is the copy we're working off of.
Sure. Okay, it's LC 432749S. And I would recommend changing the date on line 4 from 2023 to 2024. Changing 2023 to 2024 on line 25. Changing 2028 to 2029 on line 39.
Line 39, yeah.
2028 to 2029. And then on line 69, change 2023 to 2024. 69. On line 72, change 2023 to 2024. And then on lines 81 and 82, change 2023 to 2024.
Yeah, go ahead, Senator Albers.
Because these are two separate code sections, Section 1 and Section 2, do we need to add an additional sunset clause in Section 3 after, on line 82 after 24?
If the committee would like the new code section to have a sunset date,
I believe we would.
We would.
I would recommend adding after line 79, a new subsection D that reads, "This code section shall stand repealed and reserved on December 31st, 2029."
Okay.
December 31st.
2029.
So it would mirror line 39. Thank you.
You understand that, Representative
Yes,
Jackson,
sir.
what we're doing?
I
We're
do.
putting the same sunset as we do on pretty much everything around here
Okay.
in there. You almost slipped it by us, but you know, some people watch out for that.
And to provide for the sunset date in the title, I would recommend on line 6, after the word cap, to insert "to provide for a sunset date." Yes,
After the word cap.
yes.
Sure.
I'd like to move we make all that as one amendment.
Okay. Any discussion of this or the underlying bill from the committee? We do have a fiscal note on it as well. Well, he did the other day in committee, but we can have him present it again if you would like. Majority Leader Gooch.
Quick question, you may have covered this in the meeting. I noticed in the definition on line 16 through the next few lines there, defining the rural counties as 65 persons per square mile and with 100 bed.
So we missed this.
How many counties would that be?
Or any future census, it also says in there, so it would be,
Yeah, we talked about this last time. We're going to update it to be mirroring line 49, I believe.
but as far as the number of counties, I don't have that information now. I think I've heard that, but,
Sounds like probably more South Georgia maybe.
I think if you look at line 49, that's the more current language. That one's just out of date.
Okay.
Seems like we should probably replace line 16 and 17's language similar to what 49 and 50 is, so rural county is consistent. Does that make sense to our ledge council?
okay.
I'll amend my amendment.
So this is that line, the impact of that then, will be doing away with that definition of line 16. right?
You're right, it would change it to the definition in the second section as well,
But
rural
the
county.
square- if this gets into square miles of this.
So, do you want to add that into your amendment? What's our best posture? Do we need to withdraw it and have a new amendment?
I'll withdraw my first one and add the existing one and this new piece to a single amendment.
Okay? And Ledge Council's good with drafting that up, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got a new amendment that we need a second on. Got a second from Senator Hickman. Any other discussion from the committee?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this just occurred to me when you're looking at how you define rural county. So we exclude the population. If you included the military personnel in in a particular county, push it out of the rural, meeting the rural definition, wouldn't it? If you had a military installation there and you counted those personnel and dependents living there.
Correct, so it doesn't,
Right.
they're not included in the population.
But now, people in the jails and prisons are included in the population. Is that
It's
correct?
the population in the county, correct?
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
All right, Senator Estevez, pull your mic up if you get a question.
I'm just talking this out because I want to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences. So my understanding of the bill is that in the first section, that's for physicians who qualified prior to May 15th, 2024. The second the second session is for physicians who qualify moving forward.
Correct. And it also says in there that you can't take both of them, which you shouldn't be able to anyway,
Correct.
but it does have that language in there as well.
Correct. So, are we fully informed on the impact of changing the definition for Section 1 for people who may have been already taking that, some of whom may have not qualified, and then all of a sudden we change the definition for what it meant to be a rural doctor prior to this effective date? Y'all,
I don't know the impact of the two. I think it's a reasonable definition for a rural hospital, or rural county. I mean, but I don't know if you got an opinion on that.
I don't know the impact of it either.
It's kind
on
of the
that.
same thing basically, because you're talking about the census anyway, so it's just catching up with 30 years later.
okay. I believe you.
Okay.
Just want to call it out.
Fair enough.
Any
As I understand it, that language includes everyone practicing as a rural physician up to, they're qualified if they're practicing on or before
correct.
May of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that carries everybody along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? We've got a amendment, so I guess do we vote on the amendment first? I believe. So we've got we're going to vote on amending your bill as stated.
If you want to, just before you do it, go ahead and do the motion on the underlying bill to pass,
And then do the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and take a motion on the underlying bill, which is LC 432749S. We've got to do pass a second from Senator Estevez. Again?
Again, I know, I should put all in one.
All right, last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where is how have we assessed the success of this? We still have physician shortages in rural Georgia, correct?
Correct. This hasn't been one of them that has been studied. When we're doing this we started studying these the last 2 years.
Right.
We could certainly look at this as one of them.
And the reason being is that we're looking for solutions to increase health providers in rural Georgia because we're woefully short. And so understanding what has been the impact of this thus far would inform us as to whether we wanted to make this a richer, if you would.
We definitely want to be able to look at all ours on a frequent basis and study them, no doubt.
Yeah, so that it seems to make a lot of sense to do that. Because if it's working and it's effective, then we're fine, but if we need to toss a little more fuel on the fire, we need to know that.
Agreed. That's why we want to study these things, no doubt. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? This is for the underlying bill. And now now you want to do the amendment or the vote?
the motion, second, the amendment, and then vote on the amendment.
Okay. So now make your amendment again.
The amendment as outlined with legislative council for the date changes as well as rural county movement to be identical to the second section and the sunset on the second to last section.
Okay, we need a second on that again.
Second.
Okay, second from Senator Anavitarte. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Any opposed? And then the underlying bill itself is now up for a vote. All those in favor of this, will say raise your hand. All right, and opposed? Any opposed? I don't see any. Okay, passes unanimously. You finally escaped this committee. Now you've got to go to rules, and
Thank you, Mr.
to
Chairman.
work.
Thank you, committee.
thanks. So our, thanks again.
Thank you.
Our second bill on the agenda is Senate Bill 344. This is by Senator Anavitarte. And you're welcome to present down there at your spot here, whatever you prefer. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 344, what we're proposing is a Second Amendment tax holiday. With no natural predators, hunting is the primary means of keeping the Georgia deer population at a healthy level, preventing the herd from destroying agricultural crops, reducing accidents with motorists. In addition to its ecological benefits, hunting is also an important economic engine for Georgia. In 2019, hunters accounted for $977 million in retail sales in Georgia, with $1.6 billion in a ripple effect each year. Hunting in Georgia is responsible for nearly 24,000 jobs and $600 million in salary, wages, and earnings. And sportsmen are responsible for $106 million in state and local taxes, which is a major source of funding for wildlife and habitat restoration projects. The Second Amendment Tax Holiday Act will eliminate sales tax on firearms, ammunition, and related accessories for 11 days from the Friday a week before whitetail deer season begins to the Monday after. From the second Friday of October through the fourth Monday of October each year, sales of firearms, ammunition, gun safes, and related activities, including but not limited to stocks, barrels, scopes, and magazines. The Second Amendment tax holiday is intended to encourage hunting, conservation, and tourism in Georgia. By carving out a small window of this tax revenue, we hope to expand the base of hunters and increase the overall tax revenue that is dedicated to conservation. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll take questions.
Yeah, but I already talked to him about that, yeah. The vice chair was mentioning about a sunset if we move forward with this, and I told him we'd already had that discussion as well. Senator Hickman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support this bill. I'm a hunter, not an aggressive hunter, but I do hunt and I support it. I would like to see the, I don't know why the 11 days in there, but it looks like it's anywhere from about $250,000 a day to about $500,000 a day in sales tax. So I'd like to see you agree to change it to probably 5 days to 7 days, five days.
Whatever the committee decides.
Okay.
All right, we've got a comment from there. Any other discussion on the bill? Senator Orrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author, you continually mentioned wildlife and so on and so forth. I can't quote you exactly, but where is that in the bill? What am I missing about that? About how that?
Yeah, if you look at lines 9 through 11 at the beginning of line 9, the dates Friday of October is basically citing the beginning of hunting season.
Right, but you talk about all these positive things for wildlife. I mean, that's what connect the dots for me.
Well, if you're a conservationist, an outdoorsman, in the ag industry or anything of the sort, keeping the deer population at a healthy level, a lot of times starts with the beginning of hunting season, which is in October. So that's the window why we're putting it in, because I think that's when parents, usually even going back to September, are starting to get their kids ready for bow season, and then moving into Usually around October 14th was on the calendar. Last year, they haven't released the 24 calendar yet. In terms of primitive weapons and youth only, and then buck season around October 21st.
I think, if I may just follow up with a comment, and we're likely to agree to disagree, but there is a growing appetite for having less guns. So encouraging gun purchasing by taking the sales tax off for some parts of Georgia when there's such a concern about the prevalence of guns everywhere. I just say it's my guess. It's my informed opinion. It's my read of the tea leaves that this is going to get some bad press.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll respectfully disagree. I expect it to get probably hopefully a lot of good press. And I think as we've debated in this chamber before, there's no intention if you're a lawful weapons holder in Georgia, then the things that you described shouldn't be the case with, I think, this sales tax holiday.
All right, Senator, I believe that's Scooch.
Just an observation, I believe, Senator Orrock, people who steal guns are not paying sales tax already.
I wouldn't know about that. I wouldn't know about that. I've never stolen them.
All right, we've got, I believe Senator maybe Estevez was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Majority Leader. I think if we incentivized more safe storage across the state, you'd see less theft of guns.
This bill does have safes in it.
Yeah, but it also has a broad application. According to recent surveys, about a third of gun sales, Senator, are intended to be used for hunting. Only about a third. So my question to you is, why should local and state government forego approximately $5 million in local revenue annually for a tax holiday that is fairly broad and includes all gun sales versus only those intended for hunting?
Well, I think, thank you, Senator Estevez. So I think the numbers you're citing are the high estimate. The low estimate is probably closer to a little over $2 million, give or take. But I think we just outlined the reason below, and I think we're being pretty specific on what the impact is in terms of, describing the items in the legislation. So I don't know that $2 million in terms of the ROI of what Georgia's going to get back in terms of revenue sales. I think it's pretty evident.
All right.
I had one more.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. In terms of the ROI, I appreciate you bringing that up, because in the past there have been tax holidays on things that the vast majority of Georgians use. For example, school tax, the school holiday. There'd be holidays on clothes and school supplies, and my understanding is that was ultimately sunset because of the ROI, the cost, and the lack of return to the state as far as direct fiscal benefit. That's often what we study on this committee, are the fiscal benefits. What is the fiscal benefit of someone buying a gun for Georgia?
So I think, just going back and citing my earlier comments, we've seen in the last years nearly $1 billion in retail sales of these items, and then also another $1.6 billion in ripple effect. So, $1 billion in retail sales it's a pretty large number. So
if we use that logic, then school supplies and school clothing, which is a number exponentially higher than that, would yield even higher benefit. Isn't that true?
I don't know. I don't know that comparing ammo and gun safes to pencil boxes and markers is an apples to apples comparison. And I'm saying that as the father of 3 kids, and my wife's a school teacher.
I believe Senator Cowsert was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I wanted to make sure that the firearm accessories include those trigger guards. I think Senator Estevez was getting at that. That's one of the advantages of your legislation, is that it makes it easier for people to purchase gun safes and trigger guards or locks, whatever.
That's right. Yeah, we try to, I think, keep a fairly, some may say it's not broad enough, but I think it covers the pieces of a weapon, a lawful weapon, that you could purchase at Bass Pro or we're at Walmart or wherever you go and get your home stuff to hunt and everything else.
I
So-
interpret it that way, just want to make sure, because that's good public policy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator Cowser.
Okay, Senator Redd, I think you're using the one on the next desk, but that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you say that these dates correlate with deer hunting season or any particular hunting season in particular?
Yeah, it'll be hunting season in October. Yes, sir.
All right. I don't see any other questions. I think you're saying we should have there was a talk of an amendment, so I think you're saying we should have the bill first and then the amendment brought forth, okay? So this would be the pleasure of the committee, I guess, what you want to do on this. All right. Go ahead.
I'd like, so we make a motion on the bill.
On the bill itself
Yes,
first.
sir. I'd
yeah.
make the motion that we pass the bill. And
All
that
right.
is LC 432929.
All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second by Senator Hodges,
Sales tax offer, period.
and so now we could entertain an amendment.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend it from 11 days to 5 days.
Okay, so leave it,
From 11
Well,
days to 5 days.
but you got from the second Friday of October through the fourth Monday of October, so you might have to change that language a little bit
So it'd be
to
the second
accomplish that. Second Friday of October,
through.
that'd be through Tuesday, the
Friday, Saturday,
third
Sunday,
Tuesday. Well, I guess it couldn't necessarily be the third. Just, maybe you just want to change it to say, 5 days beginning the second Friday of October.
Mr. Chairman, I like your wording.
Okay, so that would change that entire first line before each, the last line on there, just from for 5 days beginning on the second Friday of October.
I agree. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wording.
Okay. Senator Cowser, you had a question or?
No, I have an additional amendment. I didn't want to interfere with that.
Okay, well, let's get a second on this amendment first.
The amendment was for the sunset?
For 5 days, we've got to get a second on going to 5 days.
Second.
Okay, we've got a second to amend it to a 5-day period. And then, I guess we're now open for other amendments as well.
If you want to act on that one first, it's fine.
Okay. Is that okay, let's go ahead and vote on this amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Okay, so your amendment passes. Now, Senator Cowser, you had an additional amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask to amend by inserting the words trigger locks, comma, after gun safes on line 10, just for an abundance of caution to make sure that's understood, that's included.
Okay, we've got a motion on line 10, after gun safes and comma, to add trigger locks and comma. Is there a second to that? Second by Senator Eccles. So all in favor of this amendment, raise your hand. All right, any opposed? Looks like it's unanimous. So now we still need to talk about a sunset, as we routinely do on these bills. Go ahead.
I move in, I assume that's going to be section 2, but Ledge Council can correct me, that this stands repealed 5 years as we would anything else in December 31st, 2029.
Okay.
Well, actually, I guess it would be June 30th, 2029.
All right. We've got an amendment to put a sunset on here of June 30th of 2029. Is there a second on this? On the sunset? Got a second from Senator Calzert. All those in favor of that amendment, raise your hand. Okay, I think that's unanimous too. Any more amendments from anybody? Okay, let me get Senator Estevez here. He's got his light up. Go ahead.
I was just going to offer an amendment to add the words "for the purpose of hunting" at the end of the addition to ensure that we meet the original purpose of this bill and that we minimize impact on state and local government.
All right, we've got an amendment from Senator Estevez. Is there a second to that one?
Second.
Second from Senator Orrock. Any discussion? All those in favor of this amendment, raise your hand. Okay, we've got 3, 4. Those opposed? Those opposed to the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Y'all got the vote there. Okay. That motion, that amendment fails. All right, I believe we're to the underlying bill itself, unless there's any other motions or discussions. So, okay, go ahead. What mic are you? You're on 4, okay.
Does this pertain to just hunting firearms, or would it also pertain for, like, Pookie or Go-Go buying a weapon on Bankhead Highway? Or is it for all weapons during this time period?
Yeah, this would apply to any lawful
Okay.
weapon sales. My intention is for conservation and outdoorsmen and hunting. But if you're a criminal, probably should be locked up, not buying weapons.
All right.
I thought it was just for hunting, weapons, but because I might need to go buy one myself. So
Yeah,
remember these
he's
dates.
looking at that hunting season when it opens, trying to do it, I think, is the intent of the author. I don't want to speak for him, but I think that's what he's doing. All right. We've got a bill on the floor that's been amended several times. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the bill, raise your hand. Okay, those opposed? All right, I see 2 opposed. So your motion carries. I probably should add at this point that I've taken out 2 deer in the last couple of years, but I did it with 2 different cars.
That's the way I feel there about the bill.
To include auto parts.
Yeah, and I should further add that there was a time my wife wished she had a gun a couple of years ago because a deer chased her and her protective dog inside the fenced-in garden to get away from it that was attacking both of them. So she regrets not having a gun on her at that time, I'm sure. All right, thank you, Senator. We've got one more bill on the calendar today. Flip back to the front here. We've got Senate Bill 364, Senator Albers. I think you probably want to do it from right here as well.
That'd be fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is going to be a hearing only, and I want to thank you for the great work you've been doing on property tax relief as well. And my goal today is just to discuss the ideas of this bill because I work with many constituents and folks throughout the state, as you have. And my goal will be, as we stated, to combine some of these items that are consensus into your bill, which I think is already moving a bit faster. I think you mentioned this very well when you presented your bill, that the property tax system is broken. It is very broken, and people have felt the pain of that over the last many years. It's very arbitrary. We've got folks that are literally getting taxed out of their homes, even though it's based on a number at any given time that we think it may or may not be worth. We also penalize people for improving their homes. As an example, you want to redo your kitchen, and you do all the right things and pull the necessary permits, you then get reassessed. Now, you don't need any additional assistance from your local city, county, or schools at that time. A new kitchen is not going to bring another kid to school. It's not going to need another police car, fire engine, or road. However, we penalize people for improving their homes. Since the 2020 pandemic, we've seen a precipitous increase in costs. Back several years ago, we felt this pain in our area of the state. Senator Beach and myself and other members of the House reset the home values with a floating homestead exemption to the lowest amount they were in 2016, 17, and 18, and then capped the increases at 3% or less based on the cost of inflation, so they could never go up more than 3%. I will tell you, people in our neighborhoods, in our areas in North Fulton have saved sometimes up to 200 or 300% increases at this point when things went way high. So part of this is to put a reset for people. If there's not one already in place, they would be protected, to reset them to the lowest amount of 2020, 21, and 22, knowing that their values went artificially high at a very quick time. It also cleans up the way that we're notifying people of when their values are going up and puts transparency on their tax bill. The challenge we have today, there are so many different exceptions. All you see is the number of what your house was worth. And then you get lost in that amount of math because you don't see all the numbers behind it. So this will put the last many years of the tax bill you paid on there, so you can see what did you pay the year prior and the year before that, so you're not hunting through your file folders trying to find those former tax bills that you have. Again, it caps the increases to either the CPI or 3%, whatever is lower. That worked out very well for a long time when the CPI was very low, but as we know, we've had extraordinary inflation over these last 3 years, and we don't want it ever to go up higher than that. It also allows for cleaning up some of the process as you had in your bill, Mr. Chairman, for the way people are doing constant appeals and gaming the system. And then I believe that if we're going to cap the increases at no more than 3% a year, that we also at that point ought to give a little bit of a break to the local governments and not have to have them post that as a tax increase just for the rate and the cost of inflation. And I use the example as our budget goes up and we don't post that as a tax increase when we have increased income, sales, and other taxes. So I think that's a fair way to balance both the state and federal part of this, up to such time where I think we need to have a complete separate Senate study committee, which is not in this bill, but I think it needs more work, to completely look at overhauling the entire system, because I think it needs a lot of work. I know a lot of us have some real-time examples of what happened in our community. And again, I don't want to go that deep. I'm not looking for a vote on this bill. I really want to work with you and take some of these provisions and add it to the good work that you already did. And I'll open it to any committee members' questions or comments.
Okay, Senator Beach.
Senator Alvarez, thank you for bringing this forward. This is good legislation and good start. I do think you're right. I think we need to look at overhauling the whole system. I've been asking my tax assessor, how do they come up with these values? Do they go on Zillow and kind of just compare things? I mean, how do they come up with these numbers? You follow me? And it's and again, and you've heard me say this, I really think it should almost be like capital gains, stock price. You don't get taxed on your stock till you sell it. And but yet I'm continually getting taxed on a property that I bought for a lot less money, but for some reason somebody thinks it's worth a lot more, and I'm glad it is, and when I go to sell it, I'm going to be happy, but I'm getting taxed on it. And to your point, if I improve my kitchen, how does that affect anybody? So I appreciate you bringing this. We got to keep people in their houses. I mean, in our area, people are being forced out of their homes, can't afford the taxes. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you. And, you know, even our founding fathers were afraid of this. They said, you know, first thing they'll tax your income, next thing they'll tax your home and property. Look at where we went.
Majority Leader Gooch.
Thank you. Chairman Halbert, I like the topic and idea of it. I'm a little worried about the shift and redistribution that this will occur if you don't include every parcel. So if you only do it for homestead exemptions, what happens to the other commercial properties, agricultural properties? I know there's CULA out there for some farm lands, but not all. And I wonder how this will impact like the sales ratio studies that the Department of Revenue does. Will they only focus then on the commercial side of it? When county commissioners have a reassessment every 3 years kept the millage rate the same, we all know what happens is that the term backdoor tax increase is used a lot, but it is an increase in taxes for all of the properties that aren't homestead. So I'd love to see us expand this countywide for the entire time, statewide.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I believe it's going to require a good bill this year, but probably even further study. And it's a good point about the commercial areas. Some counties are doing an extraordinarily good job. Some counties are not, and commercial is way underpaying because they don't have the manpower because of the constant change to residential. But I think we've got to find out a better way for everyone. But good points.
Senator Dolezal. It went off or something there. Maybe I need you to hit your button again. I don't know. It's just not wanting to
Mash
light
it
up.
up and down.
Okay, number 2.
Chairman Alberts, can you walk me through, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So if, in the scenario that somehow the tax digest was not increasing because of organic, let's just call it increased assessments on the commercial side, but you were seeing something on the residential side, they would not need to advertise, quote, the tax increase. If there was no increase, though, on the residential side, but if what Leader Gooch is talking about, you were still seeing that backdoor tax increase on the commercial side, does your bill still require the local governments to advertise that tax increase?
As long as it's 3% or less, or if the CPI, let's say the CPI goes down to something realistic like it used to be 5 years ago, and it was 1.9%. Again, that would be the max you could raise it at that point. But that's just keeping consistent with inflation because we know costs are going to go up. And again, I use the analogy of here in state government, right? People's salaries go up and they spend more money. And because that goes up, I think that's a fair balance because, you know, we want to be good partners with our cities and counties, but also back in 2010, right before some of us got here, at the time, I think it was Senator Chip Rogers did the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And part of that was to make sure there was more transparency. I think this gives a little the best of both worlds because the taxpayer gets the benefit of knowing they're locked and they're not going to go up too much. And the local government, if they're going to try and get more money, well, then you're going to talk about raising the millage rate, which is where they should be doing it anyway.
Yeah. So I'm not, this is not a gotcha. I just want to be very clear for myself. So my county has had anywhere from 5 to 10% increases in the last couple of years, but half of that perhaps has been from just organic growth at the digest, new construction. So is the trigger to advertise the tax increase previous year's tax digest, this year's tax digest, and if that delta is either CPI or 3%, whichever we're going with, then that triggers the advertisement? Is that kind of the math?
Yeah, well, it would be their choice, right? They can lower the millage rate, right? But if there's gonna be an increase any more than that 3% or the CPI, that's where the trigger would happen.
Great. I think that this may be one difference between you and Chairman Hupstetler's bill, and it's a difference that I support because I do think it's still very important, especially for the commercial property tax owners, that the local governments still have to go have those hearings and still have to talk about the fact that they are essentially, whether directly or indirectly, raising property taxes on some percentage of the property taxpayers. So I support that inclusion in this bill.
Thank you.
All right. We've got a couple of people signed up. Dante Handel from ACCG, if you want to make some comments. Again, we're not acting on this today. We're simply presenting all these options.
So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dante Handel with ACCG. Just wanted to express our concerns that we do have some concerns that we have. I apologize. So we have a bit of concern about rewinding the values that we have that are in that bill, and we do have some concerns that we are the 3-year lock statute. So there's some concerns in this bill that expands that. So right now, ACCG does have some concerns about trying to expand that statute right now, and there's some language in that bill that would expand it so that it would be a five-year lock as opposed to 3 as it is right now of concern.
I'm happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.
All right. We've got Justin Pauley from, I think you're the Georgia School Board Association, if you want to come up and speak.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman, committee members. We do have some concerns. We understand the issues that we're trying to solve here. Appreciate that. I don't want to take up the committee's time, but last week I did testify on behalf of our membership. A list of concerns around Senate Bill 349. We have some of the same concerns this time. I won't go into those and read them again to you. But I'm happy to submit those in writing if the chairman wishes me to do so.
Okay. Was that a question of?
Quick question.
Okay.
Do you have a list of the counties around the state, school boards that failed to do the rollback? With the high inflation numbers that we've heard over the last 3 years, there's been 10, 15, up to 20% increases in digest. School boards that I'm familiar with are taking some rollback in some counties and not in others, and therefore increasing some big windfalls of revenue. Do you have a list of those counties that
Yes, sir.
have not done the rollback?
Yes, sir. We've got a list of millage rates that we got from the School Superintendents Association. I think it was about 110 that rolled back, 57 that held the same, and there were about 13 that declined by about half a point. I'm sorry, went up about half a point. But I'd be happy to send that to you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Senator, who was it? Senator Dolezal?
It's me on too.
Okay.
When you send that to Leader Gooch, I want to refine his question for my purposes if I can. I think this is what he was actually asking. I don't think he's asking about some rollback. I think he's asking about a full rollback. And I think the answer to that is 0. I don't think there's a single school system in the state that over the last 3 years has done complete and full rollbacks back to what the advertised rollback rate was. You saw some do some small rollbacks, and even in Forsyth they did a 2 mil rollback, but even that I don't think was a full rollback. And so I think that would be interesting to get. It's not just correct, Mr. Lee, if that's correct. Your interest is not just a 1/10 of a point rollback and call it a rollback. It's if the advertised rate was 1% lower, that's the core of what you're asking.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
No, I meant full rollback.
Yes, sir.
So anything other than a full rollback is an intentional tax increase. No disrespect to any elected official, I've been in those local government seats. You can definitely gain significant revenue, and you can go out and tout that you didn't raise your millage rate, but there's still a tax increase, and we all know that. Thank you.
All right. Senator Estevez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my knowledge sake, I need to recall this. How do you calculate the rollback rate? Do you recall?
I don't recall. I'm sorry. I can look into that for you if you'd like.
Because I'm curious, because I know inflation has impacted state dollars spent and how much expenses are at the state level. Inflation also impacts local districts as well. And unlike the state, local districts have to advertise when there's not a complete or partial rollback. I think it's fair to say that if we want to apply the same standard across the board, then there should be some responsibility at the state level to disclose to taxpayers when there isn't a rollback, well, you could roll back on the taxes that taxpayers are actually paying at the state level. So, just wanted to ask if you knew.
I don't. I'm sorry.
All right, Senator Warrock, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the question of local school boards being responsible for figuring out how to meet the needs of students and staff and the community at large. It's had a big impact on school systems, the fact that the state has been for 20 years operating with a frozen flat level of funding school transportation. Isn't that the case?
Yes, ma'am.
And that needle had moved, and yet those local school systems, isn't it true, are charged with paying the higher cost of gas, school buses, old worn-out school buses. Isn't it true that school systems have to, in some places we've heard testimony, that the bus has to dump off one load of students all along the route and then come back to the students that have waited for an hour or two to carry the remaining students to their homes after school. So isn't it the case that there's been a huge pressure on school systems from the state not meeting financial responsibilities? And you don't have to go on record on that, but I think that's what the record shows when you have a chart that shows escalating costs of school transportation and the state staying at this low level and yet asking school boards to roll back their projected expenditures when property values bring them some additional monies. I mean, we've got to be playing, with an open deck of cards if we're going to talk about funding for local schools and nailing them.
All right, we're going to do two more, and then this was just a hearing on it. We're going to continue this discussion. Senator Dolezal, or Senator Cowsey, whoever had that mic.
I saw a number last year. This is a little bit in response to Senator Orrock's question. When we came into session, I haven't seen the numbers for this year. This burden that she talks about with the school systems, isn't it true that the school systems in the state of Georgia, at the start of session last year, had more money in the bank and in reserves than the state of Georgia?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that question.
The numbers that I saw showed that was the case, because we saw injections, not of hundreds of millions of dollars, but injections of billions of dollars into the local systems. I think, this is the last thing I'll say, would remind everybody we don't have a state property tax. And so when we conflate taxes on income with taxes on unrealized gains, that's a fundamentally different type of taxation. And it gets to what Chairman Beach was mentioning, it's not like people sold their stock or sold their house and we're taxing their gain. We're taxing phantom gain that they haven't realized a penny of. And I think that's the reason that we have heard a significant outcry from the homeowners in this state. And we hear it on the income tax too, and I'm all for lowering the income tax rate, and we stood on the steps an hour ago and talked about how we're going to try to do that again this year as well. But I think that it's just important to get on the record that these school systems, traditionally, last year was not the first year that they had more money in reserves than the state had. That's been a number of years since I've been in the General Assembly.
All right, Senator Gooch, last comment.
Yeah, thank you. 2 points. One, there's 2 ways my local government experience hasn't failed me. 2 ways your digest will grow. That's with new growth. That's people building houses, retail, shopping centers, warehouses, and what have you. So every year your tax assessors go out, they measure those new buildings, all your renovations or add-ons, they put a value to it, and that goes and it rolls into the digest. But you also have inflated values because of comps, and that's where the Department of Revenue comes in and does the sales ratio studies, and they add that up to make sure that your assessors are assessing properties equally across the border based on homes or other businesses of comparable sales. So there's 2 different ways to increase the digest. I don't think we're talking about the new growth on the digest as much as we are the assessed value due to inflation. When you have 10, 15% inflation year after year, that drives people's home values through the roof. Nothing's changed in that home except it's got a year older, and then their tax bill comes in, and this new assessment notice comes out sometime in March or April, and says, based on the current millage rate that was assessed just 4 months earlier, this is what your new tax bill is going to look like. Therefore, it looks like they're going to get a tax increase unless the county, city, or the school board rolls back that millage rate to where there's not a tax increase on that home or that business. And that's, I think, the discussion we're having here today. And so I hope
All right. Well, we're going to continue this process after this, so this was just a hearing only on this bill. We appreciate the comments, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.